I knew Marissa had something on her mind as soon as I walked through the door. "Hi, honey," she called from the kitchen, turning around and hugging me tightly as soon as I put my briefcase on the floor. But she looked a little flushed and turned away from me without even looking into my eyes. Throughout dinner, when she chatted about her day or listened to me share the latest news from the office, there was a nervousness in her voice that was hard to miss. Marissa and I had been married for over 4 years, and I knew her well enough to know that something was going on. After dinner, she brought me a second cup of coffee and sat across from me with a serious expression on her face. "Darling, can I talk to you about something?" I nodded, and she said, "I want to ask you to think about something." "Okay." "Don't answer right away." We found out what she meant by our reflections during a consultation we had a few months before the wedding. Marissa and I were a little impulsive. We tended to react quickly and sometimes lose our temper. Our courtship was passionate, but full of arguments, including unpleasant ones. In the end, we decided that if we wanted to keep our relationship going, we needed help. Our consultant Dan Ellman taught us to take advantage of the moment. When we get angry, we just need to sit back and wait. Think for a few moments before you burst into an angry response. Sometimes the reflections lasted only a couple of minutes, and other times one of us postponed the answer until the next day. He also taught us both to ask ourselves when we're angry, what's more important? What are you arguing about right now, or the person you care so much about? And, of course, we both understood that the answer was always human. It may sound ridiculous, but these tips have helped us a lot. So I said, "Okay, Marissa, tell me what's on your mind, and I'll think about it before I say anything." She leaned forward and took my hand. "First of all, Simon is the most important thing. Never forget that. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. I love being your wife, and I will never, never leave you." "Okay." God, that sounded alarming. But she continued, I thought that. Damn, I do not know how to say it. I've started to worry about some things between us, and I want us to talk openly about it. Did you feel upset? Wait a minute. Simon. Her voice was harsh. A thought-provoking conversation, right? You promised. It's not going to be easy, but please sit down, listen, and give me a chance. Sorry, you're right. I'll shut up, I said, swallowing my angry words. Honey, she said more calmly, I know it's a lot of my fault. I know that I am not always as open and responsive as you would like. I kept my mouth shut, but with difficulty. Hell, yes. It was her fault in many ways. I loved Marissa with all my heart and never regretted marrying her, but we had difficulties. It was difficult for us to find common ground on some things, and sometimes it felt like I was investing more. But despite this, I understood that our relationship was worth the effort. I appreciated her kindness, sense of humor, her loyalty, and support. Yes, I would have liked more mutual understanding, but in the end it was a relationship that was worth it. So I sat and listened as she continued, and I didn't really like what I heard. I know I've always been a little stiff, Simon. You know my mom, no wonder it's partly from her. But lately, I don't know. I feel some kind of anxiety. It's like I need to change something, get out of the routine we're in, or the one I ended up in. I know that this is partly due to the fact that I often communicate with Sherry, Susie, and the others. About a year earlier, Marissa had joined a new real estate firm where she sold residential real estate. A cheerful group of women gathered there, and soon she made new friends. They got into the habit of holding meetings on Fridays, which became almost the main event of the week for Marissa. I knew these women a little. Some were married, 2 were divorced, and 2 more were unmarried. Anyway, Simon, She paused, looking at me as if checking if I was ready to listen to her calmly. I don't want you to think that it's pressure from them, no. Although talking to them about my personal life, of course, affects me. The thing is, I want to try to change something between us. To make our lives more harmonious and full. I want to try to look at everything in a new way so that we both can be happy. She paused, no doubt expecting my negative reaction. I opened my mouth to scream, but managed to close it again. I promised to just listen, and that's what I was going to do, even though everything was boiling inside. I'm not talking about a breakup or anything like that. I just want to understand myself, to get rid of some inner clamps. And I'm sure it will benefit both you and me. I adore you. And remember the main thing. I love you with all my heart, and I will always be there for you. It seems to me that this will help me become more open, relaxed, and real. And I wanted to improve our lives too. It's about both of us, Simon, not just me. I know that you were unhappy about some things too, and I want to do my part to change that for the better." She paused, watching me. She seemed really surprised that I didn't scream and leave the room. "And one more thing," she added. "It's not about getting away from you. Conversely, it seems to me that this can make us closer. I want us to have more joy, more warmth. I love you, Simon." She squeezed my hand, then leaned back in her chair. She looked nervous and tired, as if she had just climbed a steep hill. Silence. Finally, I said, "All right, Marissa. I think I need to think about all this. Tomorrow after dinner, okay?" And without waiting for an answer, I got up and left the kitchen. I sat in my office with the door closed for almost 3 hours. Shocked. I loved Marissa, but I never would have thought that she would come up to me with a conversation like this. I always believed that we would live our whole lives together, albeit with difficulties, but happily. To be honest, I suspected that her friends from the office had some influence on her. Especially Sherry and Susie, they behaved quite freely and frivolously. It wasn't hard to imagine that their conversations could have an effect on her. You probably think that my first reaction would be outrage or even a desire to stop everything. But contrary to expectations, the first desire was to understand, what should we do next? And indeed, that was my first thought. For the first hour, I could barely think of anything else until I gradually began to calm down. When the emotions subsided a little, more sensible thoughts began to come. First of all, I liked the idea that Marissa wanted to become more open and liberated in our relationship. I wanted us to have more intimacy, more warmth, more moments together when we could be closer to each other. Perhaps she really wanted to change our usual routine and make our relationship brighter. I also believed that it was a sincere impulse for Marissa. At least, that's what she believed. But one frightening question remained. What if everything goes wrong? What if her feelings change? And if she meets someone she really likes, what then? And then another thought flashed through my mind about Diana, my boss's assistant. 24-year-old Diana was always flirting with me, hinting that she was free, that she liked me. She often said that I should be free. Did Marissa think about how I might feel in such a situation? I never planned or intended to get involved with anyone else. For me, marriage has always meant fidelity, period. But after talking to Marissa, something inside me changed. The old confidence in the inviolability of our union has cracked. By the time I finally left the office and went to bed, Marissa was already asleep. I sat alone for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. One thing was clear. The unconditional trust one had in my wife is a thing of the past. No matter what it leads to, I realized that now I will be more attentive, careful, and more serious about everything that concerns our family. There was a slight tension at breakfast in the morning. I tried to stay calm, to talk about neutral topics, and Marissa was watching me all the time, trying to catch any signs of my thoughts or mood. I picked up my bag and, trying to be cheerful, said, "See you tonight, sweetheart." I kissed her, as usual, and went to work. At lunch, I met my friend Rodney, who I went to college with. He worked as a security consultant. I told him about what had happened, how this conversation had shaken me, and asked for his advice. Rodney understood that I was in turmoil and offered me help to better understand the situation. He even suggested checking the safety of the house and car to make sure everything was under control. When I got home early, everything was fine. I decided that I would not immediately talk to Marissa about her proposal. I wanted to think things over calmly first and understand what was on her mind before I said anything. I suspected that her friends had probably told her about some of their views on freedom in their personal lives, and this could have influenced her. At dinner, I was calm, as if nothing special had happened. Finally, she looked at me and asked, "Honey, are you ready to talk about what I said yesterday?" "Marissa, you were right. I need to think about it. To be honest, I'm not ready for this conversation yet. You've really stunned me, and I'm afraid to say something that I'll regret later." She came up to me, sat down next to me and hugged me. "I'll wait. But please don't forget the most important thing, okay?" I smiled. "I know you love me." "Really?" She laughed, kissed me, and replied, "Really? Only you. Always. We can handle it. Together." She took my hand and led me into the bedroom, as if trying to bring back the warmth that had once been natural between us. She really tried that evening. We spent time together in a way we hadn't spent in a long time, with sincere attention and tenderness for each other. When it was over, we just lay with our arms around each other and watched an old movie. My doubts were still raging inside, but I felt like Marissa was really trying. And even if it didn't solve all the problems, it got a little easier for a while. But that didn't stop me from doing what I had planned the next morning. I had a long lunch at work. First, I pulled into the parking lot of Marissa's office. After making sure I wasn't visible from her office, I took the tape out of the tape recorder under her front seat and replaced it with a clean one. Then I went home, picked up the notes from the basement, and went back to work. I thought there was a good chance that Marissa had called one of her friends, either from home or from the car, and I needed to know if there was anything she hadn't told me yet. It turned out that it was. Actually, not so much. I heard her talking to Sherry from home for 10 minutes after I left for work, and then another short call to Susie from the car. In short, Marissa's plan for new acquaintances has progressed much further than she bothered to tell me. To be precise, exactly 2 acquaintances further. Suddenly, everything changed. I still loved Marissa, or so it seemed to me, but I couldn't trust her anymore. It's one thing to come to your husband and say, "Honey, we need to talk. Could we discuss something important?" It's unpleasant, but at least it's honest. And that leaves a chance that the husband will say, "No, not in this life." But it's quite another thing to start such a conversation when everything has already been decided and done behind my back, with the help of my friends. Marissa has dated 2 men, both dating thanks to Sherry. They dated, and one even gave her a present. Judging by the notes, the first turned out to be a rather unpleasant person, rude and inconsiderate. Marissa didn't like it, as a woman who found herself in such a situation for the first time. But Sherry persuaded her to give her another chance and met Rowan. And this meeting was much more successful. On the recording, Marissa giggled, telling Sherry that Rowan had completely changed her mind about a lot of things, and that she couldn't wait to meet him again. I was beside myself with rage. I spent the rest of the day in my office with the door closed, ignoring calls and messages, occasionally cursing out loud and thinking hard. I knew I could just end it, and that with the notes in hand, the solution to the issue would be easy and on my terms. The problem was, I wasn't sure. I was too stunned to know what I wanted. Although I didn't, I understood. I wanted her to experience what I felt. The woman I still loved, unfortunately. In which, it seems, her friends guided along this path, having a completely disgusting understanding of what a real relationship is. So, step by step. No major decisions, just small, momentary ones. I didn't have to think about the next year or the next 10 years of my life. That's exactly what I was going to tell Marissa at dinner. I decided to put aside all my rage and frustration, or at least hide them deeper. I wanted to be patient and reasonable. See what else I can find out. I was going to play the best role of my life. I left work early and surprised her with a Chinese takeaway, which she loved the most. He set the table beautifully, chose her favorite napkins, set out glasses for beer, everything to create an atmosphere of comfort and care. She thanked me. We enjoyed dinner, smiled, and talked. I think she was wondering what I was going to say, but she was obviously pleased to see my efforts. After we cleared the table, I escorted her into the living room, and we sat on the couch. "I think it's time to talk." "Okay." She nodded with a big smile. "Yes, Simon. Thank you for thinking. I know that I must have shocked you a lot yesterday, and maybe even scared you." She leaned forward. "But I want you to remember." I interrupted her. "I know, honey. You love me, and you'll never leave me. Will you?" She nodded, looking calm and relaxed, maybe even a little smug. "Okay," I said. "I have a lot of questions. As you can imagine, I've been thinking about it a lot. Here's the first one. Is this all just for you? Or should I also be able to make new acquaintances if I want to?" Silence. Marissa obviously hadn't expected this question. I couldn't believe she hadn't even thought about it, but she looked confused. "I'm not." "Wow, Simon. I don't know. I just thought that. Well." She leaned closer. "I guess it seemed to me that I needed to sort myself out, become more open, free, in order to be the best for you. We both know that I'm often clamped down. It's true. But is that really fair?" I continued. "So that I can stay at home or have fun while you make new acquaintances. Is it fair that you get more impressions than I do?" "But, Simon," she said, almost crying, "it will make me a better person, and I will try harder for the 2 of us." I smiled as if it was just a friendly conversation. "But it still turns out that you will have more new things, right?" She frowned. "No, it won't be that often. You're focusing on the wrong thing, Simon. The bottom line is that I need to learn how to be different. And you can't or won't do it with me." "I get it, Marissa. Well, let's try to take a break, as you suggested. You're upset, and so am I. Let's get back to the conversation later, when everything settles down." She took a deep breath and nodded. "Good. Sorry. You were very patient yesterday. I'll try to calm down too. May I ask other questions? I asked, and she nodded. It was clear from the look in her eyes that this was going to be a difficult conversation. I know you said that the other guys would just be acquaintances and you would only meet them once or twice, that they wouldn't pose a threat to us or our marriage. But that doesn't mean I'm not worried about it. I mean, what if you meet someone and you have a strong attraction? What if he turns out to be an amazing conversationalist, much more interesting than me? What if someone really makes a strong impression on you? Her eyes widened in fright when she heard me say the same words she used to describe Rowan to her friend Sherry. Honey, that's it. She murmured uncertainly. It's not going to be like that. I promise. I like our closeness, and nothing will change that. I mean, even if someone else is a nice person, it still won't mean anything. Yes? What if he makes a strong impression on you? What if meeting him will be more joyful for you than anything that has happened before? And these 1 or 2 times will turn into 6, 8, 15, just because you will enjoy his company? No, Simon. She was trying to regain control of the conversation. That's definitely not going to happen. I just don't want to talk to anyone more than a few times. Several. It used to be just once, or maybe 2 or 3 times. How many is a few? 6? 10? Maybe. Can you trust me on this? I love you, and I just won't let any of this happen. Okay, I said. Speaking of trust, as you can guess, my absolute trust in you has been greatly shaken by all this. Despite all your, I love you. You are my wife, and I have to trust you completely, unconditionally, without exceptions. Otherwise, we won't have a marriage, or at least I won't be able to be happy in it. So, let's get started. First of all, if I agree to what you're suggesting, will you promise to be completely honest with me? She smiled broadly. It was easy, and I noticed that she relaxed. Yes, baby, of course. And you won't hide anything from me? No, I promise. And you're going to tell me the whole truth and not hold anything back? Of course, Simon. Okay, then. I leaned back in my chair, pretending to think. Then I said, but you know, I just asked you all these questions about the future. What about the past and the present? Have you been completely honest with me so far? Did you meet someone behind my back? Did you tell me the whole truth? Her face froze. She paled when she looked at me. Again, I couldn't imagine how she could have not anticipated these questions. She looked absolutely terrified. I waited for almost a minute, and she looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. Finally, I got up from my chair. Well, I think I have an answer. It wasn't the answer I was hoping for, but I was almost out of the room when I heard her wailing behind my back. No, Simon, please. Don't go, let me. I turned around and saw that she was sobbing, covering her face with her hands. I waited, leaning against the wall, until she began to calm down. It took a few minutes. For me. I'm so sorry, she said softly, covering her face with her hands. I know I should have to talk to you about it first, before you do anything that might offend you. Other men? I said. So you're saying that you've already started dating others? My voice was cold and harsh. I knew the answer, but I didn't want her to know about the recording devices. She nodded. Still looking at the floor, she said. I knew I had to wait. I should have talked first, but Sherry introduced me to these people, and I did. She swallowed hard. I was just pleased with the attention. I kept my eyes on her, but I didn't say anything. If she lies to me about dating other men, our marriage is over. I decided this a few hours earlier. So I felt a tiny bit of relief inside, along with a huge ball of rage. I reread the message I had just written and clicked send. It was short and precise, just what I was aiming for. It's been 36 hours since our last conversation. I left the room, grabbed the suitcase that I packed earlier, and drove to the hotel near work that I had booked for a week. In those 36 hours, Marissa sent me 30 or 40 text messages, called and left more than a dozen messages, but this was my first reply to her. She was clearly scared, which suited me fine. Was this really the woman I loved so devotedly? The woman I thought I could count on to be by my side for the rest of my life? My week at the hotel turned into 3 weeks. Most of that time, I just went to work, returned to the hotel, ate a takeaway, and thought. I had several long phone conversations with my older brother in Oregon and another one with my college friend Rodney. They both knew Marissa well. Both listened to me patiently and generously and allowed me to speak out without rushing to give advice. I was very grateful to them. My thoughts and feelings overwhelmed me, and I tried to just ignore them. Keeping a diary really helped, even though I've never done it before. I could look back at the pages and see the ebb and flow of resentment, jealousy, and feelings of betrayal, as well as the love for Marissa that still lived in me. It doesn't go away instantly, no matter what anyone tells you. She made a mistake. I made a mistake. We both made mistakes. But she also gave me a sense of happiness, security, and love for many years, and it doesn't disappear overnight. And then I reminded myself that I don't have to decide everything at once. Step by step, make a decision about tomorrow and the week ahead. Let time do its work. At the end of the third week, I sent her another message. I'll be back tomorrow night. You're moving into the guest room, at least temporarily. Get all your stuff out of our bedroom before dinner tomorrow. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the children attacked me, shouting and jumping. I could hear her fussing in the kitchen, so I called out, "Hi, baby," and heard her reply, "Hello, darling. Dinner will be served in 20 minutes. Do you want to go for a ride in the fresh air with the kids?" I chased them into the backyard and they jumped on the swing. Carl was almost 6 and Amy was 3.5 years old, and they were both full of energy. I rolled them on a swing, kicked a soccer ball with them, and generally tried to wear them out a little bit until it was time to eat. Denise and I smiled at each other over spaghetti and meatballs. It was hard to get a word in when the kids were absolutely thrilled. Carl wanted to tell us about learning how to fold. Amy played the kazoo for the first time in preschool. The neighbors got a dog, so why can't we get one? Etc., etc. After dinner, everything is as usual. Cleaning the kitchen, shoving 2 excited children into the bathroom and dragging them out, pajamas, brushing their teeth, 2 books, and an invented bedtime story for everyone. Finally, blissful silence. It was 8:45 p.m. I took a bottle of wine with 2 glasses and met Denise in the living room. We sat quietly for a while. She leaned against me on the couch for about 10 minutes before either of us said a word. After a while, I said, "What a quiet life we lead." "Really, baby?" She just snorted. "Yes, it's nothing special. I found a simple one," she said. "Although I wouldn't want things to be any different. I love you, and we both adore these 2 crazy monsters." She rested her head on my shoulder, and we sat in silence for a few more minutes, enjoying the wine. "Wait a minute, you're talking." "Denise? 2 children? Did we miss something?" "Not at all. Have you ever heard the expression older but wiser? So you're looking at it." Marissa and I tried to hold out for more than 6 months before I gave up. We went back to the consultant we met with earlier, Dan Ellman. We talked, God, how we talked, about what Marissa did, about her desire for new experiences and how she was too easily influenced by her friends, in particular Sherry. We talked, and I listened and listened. I was at home again, and we even tried to establish a relationship, but it wasn't easy. I was uncomfortable and I didn't feel safe. I was so angry, at least for a while, that I could barely talk to her. We tried to live a normal life. We met with friends, but even they understood that something was wrong. In the middle of one of the sessions, probably around the 30th by then, we were meeting twice a week, and I just lost my temper. Sorry, I'm done listening. It's time for me to speak out." "Okay." Marissa looked at me, interrupted in mid-sentence, telling me for the 100th time about her needs and how she realized that she should have communicated better. "I think I'm done. I think it's over between us." Marissa gasped, but Dan just stared at me expressionlessly. I was sure that he had foreseen this a long time ago. "Marissa, what you did was very selfish and really terrible. You forgot that our first commitment was to take care of each other and protect each other. You went and got close to other men because you wanted to. Because you would come up with some stupid reason to make it acceptable, to get to know yourself better, to be a more suitable wife for you. All that shit. And you did it without thinking about all that it might mean for our marriage. Without even telling me. At the very least, it didn't match the commitments you made to me." Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she tried to intervene. I raised my hand to stop her. "I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I don't love you anymore. But I don't trust you anymore, and spending 6 months here with Dan hasn't changed that. I need a wife who, I am absolutely sure, will never put her desires above my feelings, or at least one who will not betray me for the sake of her whims. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe you'll ever be able to be that kind of wife to me." I turned to look at Dan. "Dan, I'll come for a couple more sessions if you think it will help Marissa and me get over the breakup, but I'm going to file for divorce." I looked back at Marissa, who was sobbing, looking at me pleadingly. "I'm sorry, Marissa." I got up and left the office. We had a few more sessions, including one that I spent alone with Dan. I talked to him quite frankly about the fact that, looking back, I can say that Marissa just seemed to me emotionally immature, not angry, but simply unable to fully see what she wanted and understand how it would affect other people. To my surprise, he immediately agreed with me. I wish things were different, Simon, but I think you're right. She's almost 30, but in some ways she behaves and thinks like a college student. And when I see her alone, I'll tell her so bluntly. She needs to grow up a bit to understand herself better before she enters into an important new relationship. God bless Dan Ellman. He got through to her, or at least so much that she stopped resisting me and allowed me to get a divorce. I had a little over a year of what I call the classic recovery period after a divorce. At first, I sat, drank too much, and thought too much. Then I changed my mind. I started playing sports again and made a few short acquaintances, which did not end with anything serious. I dated Diana after work for about 6 weeks, and we had a lot of fun, but we both knew that nothing serious would ever come of it. One Saturday in January, I woke up and was surprised at myself. Maybe I dreamed it. I do not know. I caught myself thinking, okay, it's over. It was interesting, but it's not my thing, so that's enough. Let's figure out what makes you happy, and then we'll do it. I decided to return to the simple task of enjoying life. I would call my friends more often, go to the movies more often, and take vacations more often. I was less worried about women and relationships. I let time do its thing. And, of course, the universe immediately told me, what the hell do you know? About nothing. That's what. The following Wednesday, I met Rodney and his wife, Allison, for dinner. When I arrived at the restaurant, it turned out that there would be 4 of us. Allison's cousin, Denise, had just left an unhappy relationship in Phoenix and moved here to find a new job. Rodney said to his wife, "Hey, why don't you invite Denise to dinner with us? She and Simon could get along." We got married 16 months later. Rodney was my best man, and Allison was my bridesmaid. And Marissa? I don't really know much. She moved to the West Coast, and I heard she might have gotten married. I wish her all the best, but she is no longer a part of my life. And